wonderful to have been invited by Kathy and Ms. Michonne. I appreciate the kind introduction. So I'll try to keep it a little bit on the slower side of things. I understand that most of you are studying in some English-related field, correct? Yeah? Okay. Maybe some journalism majors or something like that. So it's a diverse group of people. And I really hope that this presentation can give you some new ideas for potential careers. Who here wants to have a job when they graduate? None of you want to have a job. That's great. That's great. That's how college is today. All right. Okay, well, most of you, I'm sure, would love to get a job. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some new opportunities in areas you might not have thought about. Okay? I know many of you might actually want to be an educator or an English teacher, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. But for others, maybe there's some other industries of growth that you could be interested in. So, yes, today's topic is future-proofing your English with technology. And I know that the future-proofing, that whole word, is not actually transliterated easily into Chinese. This means, how do you protect what you know to move into the future, into a career that still works? Okay? I'll give you some examples about this. Here's a brief outline just to give you an idea of what we're going to cover today. Nothing really fancy, and also I will give you the PPT afterwards, okay? If you want, you can email me. I have it on USB. It's all yours. So here's the situation in China right now with employment in graduates. In April, in Beijing, about 28% of graduates had found a job. 29% here in Shanghai was the number, and in Guangdong, it was about 47%. So I'm not saying that's bad, but that's not necessarily great either, right? You'd like to have everybody have a job after you graduate, right? I know these guys, they don't want jobs. They just like sitting here. But most of the rest of you guys, with smiles on your faces, you all want to have a job of some kind. And so the question is why don't they have jobs? One of the issues actually is better illustrated with this is that people your age working actually in factories down in Guangdong or in Zhejiang, they actually make a little bit better wages than someone like yourself trying to get a job in an office. Now that's temporary, I think, simply because of the skill set. What you have happening is it's called a skill set mismatch. Basically, many of the people that are graduating are learning skills that aren't really in demand by companies, local companies. And one of the reasons why is because people are just learning English as the actual skill itself, and that's okay, but they don't see that it's a medium of communication, okay? So for example, my girlfriend right now, she's Chinese, and she speaks really good English, but that's not her job. She's not an English teacher. It's okay to be an English teacher, all right? Many of my friends are English teachers, it's totally fine. But she uses her English with her skill of engineering to move on and within the industry of actually developing chips. Okay? I don't expect you guys to become engineers tomorrow, by the way. All right? You don't have to become a scientist tomorrow. That's totally okay. So, really, the point of this intro is to say English is a tool and not just the skill. Okay? You have people who think if you learn English, you're going to make more money. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. I hope it's true, because many of my friends, that's the industry they work in. It's totally possible, but not necessarily the only thing. There's actually a book called Speak Better Business English and Make More Money. That sounds like a really simple idea, right? But it's not necessarily that simple, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do, these are the three areas I'm going to cover today for potential other career opportunities. Translation software, which includes artificial intelligence and moving to the cloud. Robotic services, which really deals with automating factories and automating your own household, as well as elderly care services. And again, I'm not expecting you to become doctors. You can become a doctor if you want, that's great, but you don't have to. And so what I'm actually going to do now is explain why necessarily becoming a teacher might not be a great idea or a bad idea. I'll explain the current conditions. So today in China, we have about 50,000 companies that specifically, or sorry, 50,000 centers where you can learn English. I'm sure if you walk down line 2 or line 8, you'll see signs for different companies, learn English, become rich or something like that. It's become a really big industry of $7.5 billion. This is 2 years ago. It's increased since then, but it seems to have leveled off. During this time, they've actually hired about 100,000 Lao each year, just like me, yeah, Michael. And so the odds are, if you see a Lao walking around, they're probably a teacher of some kind. Okay, hey, go ahead. Oh yeah, next, sorry, previous one? Yeah, that's great. Actually. So, if you're thinking about starting your own business as an English center or a teaching center or something like that, you're probably thinking of this number right here. There's 300 million Chinese people learning English. All of you learned English when you were what? 6 years old? 7 years old? In primary school? Yeah? And you just sat there and you just memorized it? Yeah. So you did the alphabet, you did all that system, and it's mandatory for what? Up until your age right now, right? You take the CET, or if you're an English major, you take the TEM?
Yeah.
Yeah? TEM 8? You gonna pass that? Yeah, sure you can. Just have no life, right? Just study and study. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's a lot of words. You probably know more words. If you pass the TEM 8, you probably know more English words than I do. It's true. Yeah. Because you need like 12,000 words, I think, right? Perfect. And then you also have the BEC. I know students throughout China take that also. It's the Business English Certificate. Yeah, kind of valuable. So there's a big market potential because there's a lot of people that are studying English or forced to study English in some way. So maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe I can start a center. Go ahead. But the question is, why can you not rely on this in the future? Why is this going to change?
Of course it changes.
The reason this is going to change, sorry, my prop, is you have policy changes in provinces. You have this thing called a MOOC. I'll explain that in a second. You have consumer preference shifts, and also you have software automation. So I'll explain all that real quick. Go ahead. So up in Beijing, you actually have a few universities that are dropping English from their entrance exam. Beijing Institute of Technology, there's a couple other places that are dropping English. In a couple of provinces, including Shandong and Jiangsu, you basically have the Gaokao is being reformed. You guys all took that wonderful Gaokao test, right? No. And all of you got 700, right? 720? Yeah. Okay, yeah, the Gaokao is really hard, especially trying to get into a bigger school in a bigger city, even more difficult. But there's been a movement the last couple of years in some of these cities and provinces to reduce the requirements of English. So, for example, in Beijing, by 2015, they're going to reduce English to be weighted about 100, and Chinese will be bumped up to about 150. You also have fewer people actually taking the Gaokao. That peaked in about 9.5 million, and now there's about 9 million. And that's because, well, number one, there's fewer people because of demographic issues. And number two, many students are going overseas and studying. So they don't need to take the Gaokao. Another thing for consumers is this baby MBA program. All right? I'm not saying your baby, none of you have babies, I know. Well, maybe some of you do. That's okay too. It's all right. But it's very competitive here in China. I know that everyone wants to succeed. Everyone wants to be number one. Everyone wants to go to Fudan or Tsinghua or Shanghai University of Sport. And you guys are in a good city. You're at an actual college people know about. I knew about you before you came. I know you laugh about it, but it's true. You didn't go to a small school in the middle of nowhere, okay? So take pride in that. It's okay. But you have, no, I'm sorry. my point with this is you have a lot of consumers that are spending money on things that might not pay off, such as a baby MBA. You have a three-year-old kid trying to learn English. I'm not saying they can't learn English, but if they pay a lot of money and they don't learn English, the parents won't pay anymore, right? If you don't see the return on investment. So a lot of consumers have been burned in big cities. That's what being burned is. They're not actually on fire. So economically, it looks like you have a mature market, like in Shanghai or Beijing or Guangzhou. Here in China, you have NetEase, and they have over 12,000 subjects actually, and they're investing lots of money. Maybe if you're interested in doing that, maybe you could talk to them. Also, Wulairen, they are a new startup. They're spending $30 million over the next couple of years to do online classes as well. I've actually not used these two companies, so I can't endorse them or not. I'm just giving them as an example. The reason I give them as an example is because there's been studies that show that in the next 5 years, up until through 2017, about 380 million people in China are going to look for ways to learn online education. And they are potentially, the 30% of these people are expected to spend about $11 billion. Does anyone want $11 billion? No, nobody wants to, okay. Now all of you want to have a little bit of money, so maybe there's some way you could help fulfill that opportunity. Yet, one thing to be cautious about is maybe you'll meet a Laoban, or Laobanyan, who wants you to work for them, and they're promising you something. Be cautious about the investment strategy, because over the last year, even though it was roughly a couple $100 million that have been invested in online education the last few years, but it's fallen the last year or two because people want to get rich quick. The owners, the Laoban wants to sell it, and then you're left alone. So be careful about when you do that. There is a lot of opportunity, but there's some challenges with that. Other areas. Does anyone like translating things? Nobody likes yeah, it's difficult, right? Yeah, it's difficult and sometimes not fun, right? You know, you'd rather play LOL or something like that, right? I know what you guys play. So, one area that's still growing is language software translation. It's supposed to reach almost $7 billion by the end of this decade. That's still quite a bit of revenue to try and squeeze out of this. It's only about $1.5 billion right now, so that's quite a bit of growth. You don't necessarily even need to program. You don't need to learn C or C++. You just need to know how to do the business side of things. In terms of actual services, aside from software, the service industry, the top 4 players are actually doing $1.5 billion. That's quite a bit of money too. They charge quite a bit. So those TEM testers, if you do good on your band 8, maybe you could get a job at one of these guys. Here, other areas. Here's some other websites. Again, I'm just giving this as an example. If you're interested in doing Chinese to English or English to Chinese translation. Translators Cafe, Guru, Pros, and Simply Hired. So, you can make a note of that if you're interested. Also, this is one of the biggest competitors out there, Lionsbridge. They actually pay you 10 cents a word. So 10 cents a word is what? A couple jiao? That's still better than nothing, especially if you just graduated college, okay? If you guys are looking for jobs, this is something to do for as a freelancer. Another area, if you do know some geeks or some programmers, maybe you could make a better Google Translator or Baidu Translate, right? I know all of you do that with your exams and your essays. You write it all in Chinese, and then you copy paste into Baidu, and then you press print, right? And then your teacher, they just mark it with a red pen, right? Oh, not good, right? So maybe there's an opportunity for you to actually make a better translator and actually make it useful. Here's a picture I found on the internet. Jump off the cliff. Should you jump off a cliff? No, you die, right? Well, unless you have a horse. Maybe you don't die if you have a horse. But yeah, you usually die. So this is a mistranslation. So it's an opportunity. You see this all the time here in Shanghai, throughout China. Lots of poor translations. Here's another area. We're moving on from artificial intelligence and software to robotics. Does anyone here have a robot at home? Not yet? Oh, I thought that's they don't give you robots yet? Yeah.
So rich.
That's okay. Oh, you're rich?
Yeah.
Maybe you can show me. Oh, you're not rich.
The king of
Funny. Great. So, one area, I know none of you want to be does anyone want to be a farmer? It's okay if you want to be a farmer. So, in the US, farmers are rich, all right? So at some point, farmers in China will be rich, really rich too. I'll give you some numbers. In the US, there's about 2 million people that farm and make all the food for everybody, all right? So about 2% of the population is involved in agriculture. In China, the number is about 50%. So about 700 million people are directly involved with agriculture. And part of that has to do with inefficiency. So there's a lot of opportunities there for you to try and make it each farm more efficient. And one way to do that is with these guys. This is a rover, autonomous rover that works on a farm. Or you can call it a mecha if you like Japanese cartoons. So to give you an idea of the mechanization rate, mechanization means using machinery to harvest and grow. In the U.S., corn, the whole sowing and harvesting is done by machine. There's not a whole lot of human inputs, at least in those two areas. In China, though, it's 38%. So there's a lot of room for growth if you want to bring the machines here. And you guys can make money as a salesman or actual business owner of those machines. To give you an idea of just how powerful some of these machines are, this little guy here, he picks strawberries. All right? So you guys all know what a strawberry is, right? It's not sheepwalk, right? Sheepwalk's easy. It's the big guy, right? Strawberries are these small, little, delicate, red, delicious fruits. This robot can actually, it uses a camera. It can find the strawberry. It can detect if it's a good strawberry or a ripe strawberry, and then it picks it. All right. It was developed in Japan. I'm sure you guys can make some too. But it cut harvesting almost time in half. So from 500 hours to 300 hours. So a little machine just walking around or driving around. Up in Heilongjiang, up in Dongbei, they've actually been able to use machines to actually increase their actual yields. So imagine being able to, instead of having 700 million people farm, you could have 10 million people farm. So that frees up 690 million people to do something else that's really productive. It's a big number to have moving to actual urban areas. That's what they're actually trying right now. Other areas, to give you an idea of the potential for growth with robotics here in China. For comparison, there's about 300 robots per 10,000 workers in Japan. In China, it's about 10 for every 10,000. So they have about 30 times as many. And the reason I mention that is, if you own a factory or know someone who owns a factory, maybe you could get a job showing them how to automate that with robots, either in China or from abroad. It's expected that there'll be about 30,000 new robots installed and built into these industrial centers here in China every year for about the next 15 years. So if maybe you could work as a salesman, you can make a commission on one of those robot sales or a bunch of those robot sales. Yes. These two robots are made here in China from Foxconn. They're called Foxbots. So I think most of you know who Foxconn is. They basically make all your phones, right? Your iPhones especially. They've actually been trying to really push robots into their factories because trying to manage 1 million people is really, really difficult when you have to worry about all their human needs. But the issue is, actually, the issue is this. To install a robot or to buy a robot, it's like $25,000. Does anyone besides this rich guy here have $25,000? Okay, maybe some of you do, but most of you are probably not wanting to spend it on buying robots, right? So, for a factory owner down in Guangdong or Zhejiang, they have to think about what it costs to hire and employ a factory worker. To buy a robot, it costs about 4 times as much as a factory worker makes all year long. So for them, it's still economical to actually hire a factory worker. So maybe there's an opportunity for you to build a robot, or meet somebody who can build robots and lower that price somehow. Okay? So specifically, since many of you are business-related, English-related majors, most robots are imported from abroad. 80% of robots here in China are imported from abroad. So maybe you could use your language skills to talk with Laowai and have them send them over here somehow. Or maybe you could find engineers from abroad, bring them here, train them, or they could train your workers, and then they could leave. You could say Saijian Laowai. So yeah, and the last part here, if you like that part too, the Saijian. Outbound sales. Maybe at some point you'll be able to develop some really good robots here and actually sell them abroad. That'd be a really cool opportunity for you guys domestically. This is the last major area. I think that many of you know of this issue, but you really haven't thought of it as a job opportunity. Elderly care. So you've all seen the older people outside doing their dancing at night, right? Hey, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, I've been through. I lived in Guangdong and Anhui, and it's popular everywhere south of Huaihe. So you have all these people dancing. But if you go up north, during the winter nobody dances. It's too cold. Unfortunately, though, that's not everybody. Not everyone who's over 60 is capable of doing that. In fact, today, in terms of demographics, about 14.5% of people over 60, out of all people in China, about 14.5% are over 60. But by 2050, it'll be about 1 out of every 3. And what happens when you get older, you're not necessarily able to do those dancing moves anymore. Somebody might have to take care of you. In fact, you might end up with an ailment like Alzheimer's. Does anyone know what Alzheimer's is? Yeah, you're shaking your head. So this is what a picture of Alzheimer's brain looks like. This is what a normal brain looks like. This is what you guys look like. Okay? It's very active. There's no empty spaces. Hopefully no empty spaces. But when you have Alzheimer's, basically your brain just kind of deteriorates. All right? And due to its size, China actually has the most people with Alzheimer's just because you have the largest population. And so with 6 million people, that means there's potential for helping these people get through. These people want to live dignified and they want to continue to live, so maybe there's a way to help them. Here in Shanghai, there's 120,000 people with Alzheimer's. So maybe there's a way to start a clinic, bring in some Laowais who know how to treat people with Alzheimer's, and maybe you could make a business out of it. Another area is elderly care facility. None of you live in elderly care facilities. It's great, right? You're young and very physical, having to work at your sport university. But in China, there's actually not many people even over 60 who live in one. There's about 1.6% over the age of 60. In developed countries, it's about 8%. So I'm not saying you need to have 8% or 10% or whatever, but there's a growth potential because here, in a survey, there was about 12 million Chinese people over the age of 60 who said, hey, I'm okay with living in an elderly care facility. I like people to take care of me. I want to be around people who comfort me. So as a result, there's an American company called Fortress Investment Group. They've spent $1 billion in Shanghai and Beijing building elderly care facilities to help these people. And here, there's a Chinese company who's gone down to Hainan in Haikou, and they've operated a 7-star hotel just for the elderly. It's a bit expensive though, right? It's $1,200, which is what, almost 8,000 RMB, right? Maybe 7,500 RMB. So maybe for you, you could find a happy medium somewhere that's a little bit less expensive is maybe for your own grandparents. You guys all probably still have, you guys all very young. Right? Another area is robotics, especially for this girl who's about to fall asleep. It's okay. There she is. Hi. So one way to actually help older people maybe would be, I know your smile may embarrass you, I'm sorry. So this picture here is an Agnes suit. Basically, you put this suit on and it makes you feel hard to move. It makes you feel like you're an elderly person or someone who's physically disabled. So if you try that on, maybe it'll give you an idea of, hey, if they have to live like this, maybe there's a way to help them. This is one way to help. This is a power suit. It was developed by this Tsukuba University down in Japan, and it's called the HAL. It helps you lift weights that you cannot lift anymore. In the UK, they've developed this kind of robot called Hector. It's basically a big touch screen that follows you around, okay? And you can touch it, and it tells you what you can go do or how you can be helped. In the US, there's a couple robots. This is called the PR2 from Willow Garage. And what it can do many things. But one thing it could do, it could open a door and get you a pijo or baijo. Something else. You guys, I know, that's what you guys all do on Friday nights. Today's a Wednesday. Don't drink baijo today, okay? Is that what you have in your containers? Is that why you guys are all sleepy? You just had too much baijo for lunch? So this down here is another robot. It's called the Roomba. Has anyone seen this before? Yeah. What does it do? What does a Roomba do? It cleans. Maybe it cleans your dormitory, right? You got like 6 of you in there. Especially the guys. The guys are really messy, right? Girls, you guys are all clean. Yeah. The Roomba, they sold like 11 million in worldwide, and it just vacuums your floor very, very easily. So specifically, how can you do this? You can actually do, it's hard to see, this is actually bolded. This is best practices. If you want to help elderly people, one of the best places to go is probably to the US to find out how they do it, because there's a lot of older people called the baby boom who's retiring and need services. Since China hasn't hit that same level of being top heavy yet, you could go there right now, find some experts like my mom. My mom works in a hospital. You don't need to hire my mom. I don't think she wants to be hired. But yeah, somebody she might know. You could find some Laowai to help train people at these centers, train people to do robotics, since you all speak English. And yeah, that's about it. This slide. Other areas. To give you an idea, in the U.S., if you major in English, people major in English in the U.S. just like people major in Chinese, right? And I know you laugh, it's true. But what are some other jobs you can do with English? In the U.S., these are the top 10 paid jobs for English majors, okay? There's a website called payscale.com. And the sales account manager, they make more compared to other English majors. They make $68,000 a year, all the way down to technical writer makes about $50,000 a year. That's about 300,000 RMB. It's pretty good, right? But this is just to give you an idea of what you can do maybe in China. Maybe you could do one of these jobs too, now that you've learned English and you know Chinese. So that's just about it. One other area I want you guys to try and think about, you've all heard of a resume, you've all heard of a CV, or a cover letter, all right? When you try to get a job, I really recommend, if you want to work with Laowai, I recommend, actually, can you go next to, yeah. You can go to this website called LinkedIn or Wuxi, and it's basically an online resume, all right? This is a way for you to put your skills and abilities out there. There's about 250 million users, Laowai, on LinkedIn. So if you want to meet business professionals, this is not RenRen. It's not renren.com. It's not Weibo. It's nothing like that. It's strictly for meeting people to do business with. Okay? So you put your resume, they see your resume, they try to hire you. It's also a good place to recruit Laowai to come to China. And again, it's actually almost all Laowai because it's only 1% Chinese. So, what I hope you guys got from all of these ideas is never to stop learning. It's okay to learn English, and maybe you could program LOL2, or WOW, whatever else you end up programming, or another skill of some kind. And it's okay to be an entrepreneur, to start your own business. It's quite easy to start a business here in Shanghai compared to other cities. It's got a much more streamlined framework. A few other areas in closing to think about are apps for your phone, 3D printing, cryptocurrency, which is like the hot big thing now with Bitcoin and Litecoin, and bionics. Bionics is just a replacement of body parts as you get older or something fails. So, China. This is my contact information. Feel free to add me on Weibo or LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to give you my PPT as well. So, does anyone have any questions I can help you with right now? Any questions or comments? So your heart's broken, right? Does anyone have a job right now? Okay, besides studying. I know studying takes your job. Besides, did you get paid to do anything? Have any of you worked with Laowai? Not yet? But you were all studying English in some way? Yeah? Okay. So again, if you want to do anything, number one, I recommend getting an internship if you can. I think Kathy is actually doing, is this an internship for you? Yeah, so maybe look around online just for an internship. And then, if you can, get on Mushi or LinkedIn and post your resume, because then you'll beat all these guys who just play games all day. Right? Or maybe they'll make games one day. Yes?
Okay, I have a part-time job right now, and in my company I work with American guy. And I'm very confused at how can I work with him efficiently because we are in different time zone.
Oh, so he's in the U.S.?
Yeah.
What time zone is he? Is he in New York or California? Or?
New York City. New Jersey.
So he's 12 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Or behind.
So we chatting WhatsApp or email, but I think it's not efficient. So it's very confusing.
Would he be willing to move here?
No.
No? Would you be willing to move there? No, you don't want to go to New Jersey? Nobody wants to go to New Jersey. Everyone wants to go to New York City.
What do you do? I want more efficient.
Okay, when you say you're not working efficiently, do you mean it just takes too long to have a response?
Yeah.
What do you do? What kind of action do you do?
Because now I don't know what's the problem with us or with this guy. Every time I ask him to do some stuff, and he just said, "Oh, I didn't saw your email. I'm sorry."
And he does that more than once?
Yeah.
Frequently? Why don't you just get another Laowai?
It's his problem.
It could be because email doesn't really get lost anymore, and people who make that excuse just don't want to talk to you or something like that. No offense, I'm not saying, hey, I want to talk to you, but no, maybe he doesn't. What kind of industry is it? Are you doing programming or what is that?
We sell products on the internet.
Like on Taobao or Alibaba? eBay. And you need him for why?
Also, because we have a company in America, and he have to figure out what problem with that company and any stuff we need him to do in there. So we need him to do.
He doesn't do it though.
Yeah.
So.
I
How about this? After we're done, I can try and talk to you in person about that. Okay. Any other questions? If you face a similar situation, if you're working with one Laowai who doesn't seem reliable, they're not all reliable like me, okay? True. So it's just like here in China, not everybody's the same. In the US, not everybody's the same. So it's okay to look around for other talent or other people with the skills. And really, in your position, the easiest way I think would be on LinkedIn, because business professionals use that. It's free, and I don't own any stock. I'm not pushing it because I make any money. Any other questions? Yes.
I have heard you have been working in EF, and now I am the assistant in EF for the kids. So I want to be a member in EF after my graduation. So can you give me some suggestion what I should do now?
So what part of EF do you want to work at?
Just for the
You just want to walk on the street, hey, I speak English. Come to the
teaching assistant for the teenagers.
for teenagers. How about this? I can give you some people's contact information after this, okay? That might be not a real job, but at least you can talk to them, okay? So you like teaching English?
I want to teach English for the kids.
For little kids?
Yes, I love them.
You love the energy?
Yes, I love them.
You like they don't all spit. They don't all spit. I spit. Okay, just talk to me. And by the way, if you don't want to ask me a question, feel free just to email me anytime you want. I do check my email, unlike the New Jersey Laowai. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, guys. I'll still stay after if you have anything else you want to ask me. But it was great to be here, and I hope you have a great week. So, anyway.